Listen to me very carefully. At the turn of the century, after the panic at the Millennium Bug, Jar Jar Binks in Windows 98, the geeks inherited the Earth. I've been sent into the past with one mission: to save the world from inferior podcasts. There is now only one possible future. It is NOMCAST. Come with me if you want to geek. Hasta la vista, baby!
Good evening and welcome to another episode of NOMCAST. This is a Star Wars special where we will talk about a film that you may have heard about. It's been around for a couple of years and a few people like it. So this evening on the panel we have Mr. Mark Newbold.
Howdy doody, good evening everyone.
We have Mrs. Lisa Hicks.
Hello.
And Mrs. Nancy Petru.
Hello all.
And so this evening we are talking about everybody's favourite, well, most people's favourite, well, a lot of people's favourite, well, some people like it. It's called Star Wars. Now, usually we do a bit of a round robin and everybody talks about a certain subject that they like in the world of nerddom. But as it's just a single subject tonight, we'll just get into a bit of discussion about it and generally talk about the state of Star Wars, as it was then, as it is now, as we like it, and as it's going to be in the future. So guys, let's just start from there. There's the question for you. What is the state of Star Wars? It's been around for a very, very long time. It's now part of popular culture. It disappeared for a little while in the 1980s, came back with a bit of a vengeance in the 90s, hit us with some new movies at the end of the 90s, and then cartoons, comics, toys. Well, it's been toys pretty much since day one. But right now, we've got the news of Episode 7. Mr. Abrams has taken the helm. That's coming out in a couple of years' time. Is this a new era for Star Wars? It's in the hands of Disney now, so is this a new era for Star Wars? Is this a time to be excited about Star Wars? Mark, what do you think?
Oh, wow. Yes to everything. Yes to absolutely everything. It's definitely a good time to be a Star Wars fan. But then if you've been a Star Wars fan since day one, like old farts like most of us here, Nancy accepted, have been.
When you say old farts, you mean me and you, yeah?
I mean me and you, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Just clear it up.
I mean, yeah. Yeah, you know, we've seen it all the way through. We were fans when it came to the UK in sort of late 77, early 78, and got into it on the playground. You and me became friends for a fairly long time because of our shared love of Star Wars, you know, and that's 30 plus years. So I've got that to thank for Star Wars.
Hey.
I
love you, man.
I love you, man. You know, so Star Wars makes friendships. Yeah, I think if you've been into it and got into it, put it this way, I can't think of anything else that people can get into quite to the same degree as Star Wars. But then again, when you're really into other stuff, and I've been really into other stuff like Star Trek, for example, it's a very different relationship. So I think, whilst I would say, being predominantly a Star Wars guy, my relationship with Star Wars is unlike any other relationship with any other franchise or thing that I love. I can also say, knowing the same sort of thing when I was madly into Trek, that was a very different relationship to Trek than it is to Star Wars. So that might be a bit of a dead-end analogy, but
not really. Do you think that your love of Star Trek began because of the whole Left by Star Wars when it wasn't much happening with it? I mean, we had continual Trek coming out off the airwaves, and yet there was pretty much nothing for Star Wars, especially at the sort of late 80s, early 90s, except for a couple of books and maybe a comic or two.
Very much so. We were talking about this on Facebook earlier, weren't we? Got to a whole big Trek conversation, and I think for me, the reason I got so into Star Trek, for example, and I know we're kind of diverting, but there's a point to this, is that the original trilogy came to an end in 83. We knew there weren't going to be any more films, and by that point, me as a young fan I was getting banter tracks. I was reading all about ILM and all the effects guys and all the background stuff, and so I knew ILM were working on the Trek movie, so I took an interest in them, and then by extension all the Spielberg stuff of the 80s. So my interests broadened very much so, and Star Wars was always there. You know, you and me were flicking ping pong balls at our Star Wars figures on the Star Destroyer playset well into the 80s. You know, so
was that the game when I hit the C3PO, and it was the one that you can actually break down and put in that backpack that Chewbacca had. And when it hit it, his arms and legs flew off, and I thought I'd broken it.
Yes.
Those were the days.
I thought it was the original one.
That's right. Oh man, I was pissed.
Which internet? You know, Jason broke the hologram.
Yes, on the Star Destroyer. Yeah.
I managed to find one on eBay. I now have an unbroken hologram for my Star Destroyer, so I'm very.
Get in.
After what, 20 odd years?
Yeah.
Clumsy twat breaking my Star Destroyer. But anyway, you can leave that in.
You can run over my cat, but you mess with my Star Destroyer. I'm going to remember that for life.
I swear to God, I will come round your home, I will burn your cat, and I will fuck you up.
You better hide your goldfish. But, so Star Wars was, it went through its fallow periods, as you've said. And yeah, definitely. I mean, Next Generation launching in 87. And I mean, I'll get a lot of flack. Well, not a lot of flack. It's all banter, but I get a bit of a rib from people, especially James, when I do 1138. I talk about Star Trek because I love Star Trek. Unabashedly love Star Trek. Half my collection of Star Trek, Yeah. I love it. But when Next Gen started in 87 and ILM had just done Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home, then they did the early sort of stock effects for Next Generation. So of course you got ILM's, it was a deal they struck. We got ILM's logo all over the credits of Next Generation. So I took an interest in that and then just grew to love the show. So Star Wars, but my point is that Star Wars has always been there in the background. You and me were role-playing West End games from sort of 87, 88, right through the 90s, hardcore role-play stuff. And Star Wars has always been there. Like you're saying, that in the early 90s, it made a comeback through, obviously, Heir to the Empire, as everybody knows, and sort of the second coming of Star Wars, if you like. And it's never really dropped off. You're talking 20 plus years now of continual, pretty much build. Even after episode 3 came out, you only had a couple of years and the interest was high after episode 3 and you got the Clone Wars and the interest has been high. So yeah, Star Wars is just, it's very unique and other franchises come and go. Like I say, Trek's on the dip at the moment, but Trek will come back. We were talking the virtues or lack of Star Trek Into Darkness. And I would say if you had to put 10 good points up about Star Trek Into Darkness, you'd probably hit 9 of the markers. And the one marker that it absolutely fails miserably on is
everything.
Story. It's just a crap story. It's just an awful derivative.
It's lazy and it's, we were talking about this earlier. It's almost offensive to us older Star Trek fans.
Yeah, it totally is. Because it misses so many of the key points. But Star Wars, I'm going to stop talking because you know me. I could talk for an hour about Star Wars. Very, very special, and I'm excited about what's coming because I just hope. Well, I'm certain that if JJ was left to it to do a Star Wars film, we would do a better job with Star Wars than Star Trek because he's a similar age to us, a little bit older. He's of the Star Wars generation. He gets what it's about. The stuff I've seen so far looks like it's visually hitting all the nails on the head. So I'm pleased with that. Story is king. Paul Bateman always says, content is king. Absolutely right. Story is king. Story's got to be right. If he ballses the story up, he's killed Star Wars. But I don't think he's going to. I think he's got it. And he's got Lawrence Kasdan on his side. So I'm looking forward to it.
There's nothing I've seen yet from the build of this new Star Wars movie that has made me have any doubts that I'm going to enjoy it. Then again, I had those same feelings before episode 1. You were watching that sort of build up and thinking that's going to be absolutely amazing. And then I ended up not liking... Well, I say not like... Well, no, I didn't like any of the 3 films, to be perfectly fair. That was a massive, massive letdown. But I'm hoping that when they now come along to this new one, we've got a whole new director, new writers, new blood, basically. Yeah. I am hoping for something a little bit better. Even if it gets to the sort of level of Return of the Jedi, I'll be happy.
Oh, totally. Blimey, yeah. I mean, Jedi... I watched not Crystal Skull, sorry. I watched Last Crusade yesterday. Yeah. And you can compare... I remember us talking about this in the 80s. You look at the Indiana Jones trilogy, you look at the original Star Wars trilogy, and you go Star Wars and Raiders, classic first movies, got their own vibe and their own style. Temple of Doom and Empire, the dark second chapter. Yeah. And then Last Crusade and Return of the Jedi, very triumphant, finish the trilogy, kind of more like the first
one. They kind of revisit the first one, elements of the first one. Yeah.
Yeah. And I watched Temple of Doom last week, and watched Last Crusade yesterday. Yeah. And just adore Last Crusade. I remember when we all went to see it at Sutton, and I look back at Temple of Doom, and I love Temple of Doom, but it seems such a drop in quality compared to Raiders and Last Crusade now. It never used to, but now I watch it and I think that's really not that good. It's a little wobbly in all honesty compared to Raiders.
Aged well.
Nothing. It's not a patch on Raiders, although there's great iconic Indiana Jones moments that people really remember fondly.
Yeah.
And Star Wars, you hope that these new ones, I'm confident. I feel good about it. I've got to say, I was very unsure about JJ when he came in. I was like, really? Really? What's he done to earn that slot? That's a huge, but then I wouldn't want a James Cameron doing it. Shoot me in the head with Elgin rather than James Cameron makes a Star Wars film, So, yeah. Somebody else talk. I'll talk all night. Talk over me, otherwise I won't stop.
Lisa, what do you think?
Well, we've touched on this on recent episodes of NOMCAST. I We spoke last week about the transition of like when you have a project, you're supposed to. I expect people to give 100%, so I expected JJ to give 100% to Star Trek, and he feels that he did, certainly for the first one anyway. And now he's going to have to give 100% to something that is not. It's like they're like the Arsenal and Tottenham of the sci-fi world. Would you say that was a good comparison? So it's quite hard. It's like Sol Campbell. He's Sol Campbell to me right now. And I wonder how that's going to translate. That's my only worry, really. If it's just another paid job, because I just think that it comes to the point where it's been around for so long, and it means so much to so many people, and it is the fans that have kept it going. Because if it wasn't for the fan base and the just what it means to a lot of people, like you said, we're going back to 1978. What it means to those people that have kept it alive and strong for so long, that it's a bankable commodity. Yeah. Will he do that justice if he can swap so easily between the two? Will he be doing something that's not just a paid job?
I kind of got the impression that the work they did on Star Trek was probably more this is a paid job than the work they did on Star Wars. Right, and so this is what he wants. Okay. Yeah, that's the impression I get. As much as I liked his first Star Trek because it was his own thing, but in the second one, it all comes down to the director at the end of the day. Writers or no, you can't just simply blame the writers. But the whole thing was a massive mess, and sadly, Abrams has got to shoulder some of the blame for that. In my opinion, there's obviously loads of people out there who probably like it, probably people younger than 20. But it's just not a good film. And him get sorry.
It's a good. Sorry to cut across. We talked about this earlier, and we both made some quite interesting points. I think as an action film, as a sci-fi action film, fine. But Star Trek has got so many of its own deeply embedded rules that the TV series and the previous films have honoured, if you like.
Yeah. And then these movies just chucked them all out the window.
The silliest, the stupidest scene. And I don't want to talk about Star Trek all night. There's Benedict Cumberbatch. Khan! In his outside that window, hovering outside the window, gives Kirk a look, beams out, and you're thinking, he's beaming down to the ground, or he's beaming off to a shuttle or something. No, apparently he's beaming to Kronos. He's just beamed to the Klingon homeworld. Yeah. What a pile of wank!
Yeah, it is, and that's the complete use of starships thrown completely out the window.
Totally.
Yeah,
totally. Just
the whole film was lazy. It's like, oh my god, can you beam him off there? No, we can't. Can you beam me on? Yes, I can. What? What? How do you work that out? You can't
beam somebody off a moving platform, but you can beam somebody on.
I'm sorry, that sounds like a cock of shit to me.
Why do we need him alive? We need his blood. So why do you need him alive if you only need his blood?
Yeah. Just shoot the bastard.
And then take his blood. Why are you going after Khan when there's 71 other people in cryo tubes that have got the same blood?
Yeah.
Why?
There's no sense at all.
They started off the film like that, though. They started off the film like that. It's just completely ridiculous because the Prime Directive. Sorry to talk about Star Trek again. The Prime Directive says don't get involved with planets that are not up to the civilized status of yourself because you're going to fuck things up. So what do? Is that they have a ship that can go in space and beam people down. But they come down and land in the ocean.
Within running distance of where these people live.
Within running distance, yeah. So, red flag. Hi,
as soon as the film starts, it's like, what just happened? I don't get it.
Saying that, going back to Star Wars, right? in Star Wars, John mentioned something yesterday that I didn't even think of, and I can't even believe I didn't think of it. But it passed me by until it was right obvious in my face. Han Solo is possibly an inspiration between Mal Reynolds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I didn't think of it until I saw the new sketches for what Han's going to look like in the film.
Yeah.
I didn't even think of it, and I actually turned to John and said, I don't know, that's not very original. And he went, well, no, he was actually based. And when you think about it, it's obvious.
Yeah.
I just didn't even think about it. But yeah, you just see that the characters, how they've translated through time into different things.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, the characters are iconic. I mean, you could almost say that they were stereotypical. That's why they've lasted for so long, and that's why they've translated well over to lots of other things. And that's why Firefly works so well, because it is that crew on a starship. It is how you would imagine the Millennium Falcon doing its work day to day, with 5 or 6 crew on board. And in fact, when they were talking about doing the last episode, Objects in Space, and they were trying to think of what to base it around, one of the writers said to Joss Whedon, here's an idea for you, Boba Fett. And that's why he came up with the idea of the bounty hunter going onto the starship, because of a Star Wars reference. Because Joss Whedon's a massive Star Wars fan. And that's why he did it. So Star Wars is influencing other people's work left, right and centre. So it's never going to go away. It's always going to be there. And the stuff that people are doing now is always going to remind people of Star Wars, exactly like Mal Reynolds says. So, and very quickly, just to jump back to the Star Trek analogy, although I didn't like Into Darkness at all, I'd even go as far to say that I actually hated it. The only thing that positive that came out of it was watching the action sequences that Abrams directed made me confident that he would actually make a decent Star Wars film.
Yeah, a lot of people said, Abrams is, before he got the Star Wars gig, because, don't forget, they offered him the Star Wars gig, and he said no initially, and then it was Spielberg that persuaded Kathleen Kennedy to go after him to do it. So he's obviously got faith in him, in that respect. But I think a lot of that it's sort of a kind of blowing smoke up Spielberg's doodah, because, there's J.J. Abrams making Super 8, which is basically a Spielberg film anyway. So there's a lot of sort of links there. But
I didn't like that either.
I like the vibe. It wasn't a brilliant film.
I like the vibe of it. I like the 80s feel of it, but I thought the creature was terrible. And I thought the bit at the end was just completely bollocks. This thing, I don't care how long it's been locked up for, it ate people. I have no sympathy, I'm sorry.
They're trying to recreate the end of E.T. E.T. didn't go around eating people and biting people's heads off. The worst thing E.T. did was what was the worst thing? He perved after Elliot's mom. That's about the worst thing E.T. ever did. Wasn't it? So,
that was his neck stretching, yeah. No, it's crazy.
I thought he said something else then.
Isn't that weird? Hopefully people will hear that properly.
Into Darkness. I like the film, it's fine. And like we said earlier, great sci-fi action movie if there weren't a lot of conventions to stick to. But there were, and they didn't. That was the problem. With Star Wars, I can't
remember whether it was an official tagline or whether it was read in the paper, but somebody said, "This ain't your granddad's Star Trek." And I'm thinking, because my granddad's Star Trek wasn't shit. So it just like I just couldn't get on with it. So sorry, Lisa, we kind of took over the conversation there a little bit. You're saying sorry?
No, that was it. No, we've discussed it.
Okay. Nancy, what about yourself? We know that you grew up with Star Trek. Well, yeah, and Star Wars. What do you think?
Well, probably more Star Wars, I would say. I just remember my dad was really into Star Trek, The Next Generation. He watched all of them. He's a Trekkie, but there were lots of dinners that I remember where we would watch Captain Picard. So,
That's true.
I grew up with the original Star Wars trilogy. I really liked it quite a bit. There's a picture of me in when I was a toddler chewing on my brother's Han Solo figure, which I love. But I didn't really fall into love with the franchise until that big wind up that preceded this prequels, because everyone was excited about that. I need to tweet a picture of myself when I was a young lass in the deep throes of my Star Wars love. It's on Facebook, but I need to put it on Twitter. It's incredible. It's nerd level 10. Oh my god. My entire room was wallpapered with episode 1 stuff. And my own fan art from I can't believe I'm admitting this, the Jedi Apprentice YA series, which was too young for me. Even at the age of 13, I realized that those books, I was probably a little too old for that, but I didn't care. I was so into the Jedi and pretty much just the Jedi. That was what I liked about Star Wars. When the prequels began to suck, which I think coincidentally, not really, is as I got older, right? I was a little more critical. I realized that I needed something that was actually good, so I went back to the original trilogy, started exploring the extended universe, and that was awesome. So that pretty much held my attention, my sci-fi attention for most of high school, I would say. By the time I graduated, the backlash that had risen from the prequels was terrible. It was so awful. And of course I was old enough now to see them actually critically instead of with the eyes of a child. Oh, so sad. And I think for me it was almost, I always joke that Star Wars is like my abusive boyfriend, but that is kind of how I feel about it, because
you've said that before.
It's so, I think there are a lot of people like my age that feel that way because you trusted Star Wars, and then at some point you just realize you're in a bad relationship and you need to get out. This is terrible. This story you thought was good is shitty and full of holes. The character development makes zero sense. When you go back and you're not, awed by the special effects, you just see everything else about it that sucks. The prequels, I mean. And then you're kind of like left with a hollow feeling of what you used to love. It's really not that great. But I think for me, the worst of it was like looking back on the Jedi and it's hard to explain. It's kind of like I looked up to them a lot. Like they're my role models for probably most of my teens, I would say. And then at some point I realized like how their own arrogance was their downfall, and I just could never get over that.
Oh, right.
Really, really bothered me. I was like, but all you had to do was, it seems so simple now, older, to see what the problem was. Like, there didn't have to be a prophecy fulfilled to begin with if you hadn't have been so arrogant and sure of yourselves. And not one of them was like, hey, maybe we need to, look into this. Maybe we need to not be exclusionary. Maybe we need to whatever. So then I was away from Star Wars for a little while. But getting to the original question, I think for me, yeah, JJ, I don't know. I have misgivings about him. But I think the set pictures have gone a really long way towards making me feel like they're not going to make at least those mistakes that the prequels made. There's a lot of are they using Jim Henson? Are they using Muppet type? What are they doing? I don't remember what the company is.
Let's ask our resident specialist, Mark.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go that far. They're not using Henson, I don't believe, but they are using a lot more practical. I mean, this is another thing. A lot of people are saying now, fantastic, Star Wars is going back to the practical effects that they didn't use in the prequel. There was a huge amount of practical effects.
There was loads of
practical
effects, yeah.
It's just the fact that instead of compositing them optically, photochemically, then now they composite them digitally. That's the only real difference. So
a lot of the practical effects get lost in the CGI. Yeah.
Yeah. But they are composited almost better because they're composited digitally as opposed to composited in the old way, which is a format of doing special effects that hasn't been used for 25 plus years. Since the late 80s, early 90s. So. But I understand the worries there. But yeah, there's a lot more. You'll still see CG characters, and CG characters now are so much better than they were even when you were doing the prequels. It's 10 years. It's 10 years since the effects for Episode 3 were done, so we're way beyond that. But no, you're going to see a lot more, many masks and stuff like that.
Well, I think it's kind of interesting that I ask that, and you're right. The technology's better. Why would you really go back to sort of an analog-looking Star Wars? But I think the fact that he is doing that. Speaks to the fact he is aware that he needs to make that bridge between the original trilogy, like the feel of that for the fans, and what he's going to be creating. Totally,
yeah. No, it's a tactile thing as well. I think when you're an actor on set, one thing I always think of, an analogy is they spoke to Christopher Lee, Samuel L. Jackson, and Ewan McGregor whilst making Episode 3. And they basically asked them the same question. What's it like working with the blue screen? What's it like working with the green screen? Bearing in mind, Ewan McGregor is the same age as me to the day. We're both 31st March 71, so we're exactly the same age. Ewan McGregor couldn't get it. I hate it. It's terrible. It's green screens. It's awful. I can't do it. I find it difficult. Then you speak to Samuel L. Jackson, who's in his 60s, who's worked on Jurassic Park and all these amazing films. Oh, yeah, great shit. I love it. What the fuck is green? Blah, 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 blah. Doesn't care. Loves it. It's great. And then he speaks to Christopher Lee, who's nearly 90.
Yeah.
You put a balcony in front of me. The director's telling me you're looking out on a field of 1,000 troopers and there's a purple sky and flying ducks and la la la. And he's an actor, so he can visualize that in his head. And he is acting to a green screen with all the conviction he would be acting to a real set. And you think, well, who's the better actor? So I don't buy the whole green screen thing. It's like Gangs of New York. Scorsese makes Gangs of New York, and he's got a huge budget, and he's struggling to get it financed. And Lucas comes along and says, "This set you've got here, I&M could do that for a tenth of the price." And he's like, "No, I want the real set." So he goes out an arm and a leg and has the real set built as opposed to the CG set. And on one hand, if in Lucas's world to build a huge hangar set for a Star Destroyer is not practical, so you do it in CG, whereas in Scorsese's world, it's a grounding for the actors. It's a different way of doing things. It's a different way of looking at things.
I think Spielberg made a good point of that sort of thing, because I think it was when he was making War of the Worlds, and he basically said, the green screen, there's a place for green screen and all this sort of stuff. But having a huge set, when they were doing the bit when they came out of the Nutters basement.
Oh, the plane crash.
Yeah, that's right. And you got and it's picked them up and put them in the basket, and all that entire scene was a massive set. It was all green screen behind. But he said he liked that practical sort of feel of the set without having to worry about covering everything green toilet paper, mainly because of the fact that when you turn up on set, you might have different ideas about where you want the camera to be, where you want certain angles to be. There might be something on the set which is a little bit more interesting, which you want to get in the shot. Instead, it gives you so much more freedom when you've actually got a physical set there. It's something that unfortunately green screen can't give you. Now, it's easy to say, yeah, but afterwards you can add that in afterwards. But then, if you're on set and you're being inspired by that set, I think it probably makes for a better film, not only just for the actors, but probably for the director as well. But again, I guess it just comes down to personal taste.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think the key thing they want to get right in this film is they want to get the acting on the nose, because and the script, obviously, you've got to kind of have a cheesiness to a Star Wars script. You can't have it be War and Peace. You can't have it be sort of all of them suddenly the most amazing screenplay ever. Star Wars is never going to win Best Screenplay at the Oscars, is it? There is an element of cheesiness to it. It's like the whole Harrison Ford line, you can type this shit, but you can't say it. There's got to be an element of that to Star Wars, because that's part of what Star Wars is. But nevertheless, you want the characters to feel, you want to watch those characters and think they own that. They live there. That's there. We're looking at where they live. We're not watching Ford acting on this. Yeah, exactly. So whatever that can give the actor to make him feel, or her, obviously, or it, whatever, to feel like it's grounded in there. Brilliant. And I get why JJ wants to do that. I like that. I think it's cool.
Do you think that? I mean, that's what we want. That's what we'd like. I mean, I'd love to see that. That would give you the same sort of feeling that I had with the original trilogy. What if that doesn't happen? Is that our expectations being built too high again? Will we sit in that cinema room and saying that didn't feel real, therefore it is shit? Is that an expectation which might be one of the downfalls of our taste of the film, of our love of the film?
I'll let somebody else answer that.
Yeah, Lisa.
Are you talking in like expectations?
Yeah.
Or,
Are we already building up expectations which might prove to be too big for the film to fulfil?
I think from what I've seen, and I mean, we spoke a couple of weeks ago about spoilers.
Yeah.
So I have taken the choice with this one, as we talked about, to not look at much, so that it's all new. But sometimes you can't avoid it. So you see the character sketches and things like that. I haven't seen anything new. I saw somebody on Twitter had a complete rant about the Stormtrooper costumes that they've seen.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, are you dude? What do you expect? They're Stormtroopers. That's what they're going to look like. They've made modifications to the visor and what it looks like, but not that much. But I don't understand what some people want. They literally do want the Death Star on a stick. It's ridiculous. They just, they want a complete. I think some things are traditional and some things they can make a move with, and the things that they are making a move with are the new characters that they're bringing in because they have to, really. But the traditional things, they're there for prosperity purposes. That we want to see them there. When you see a Stormtrooper, it's a Stormtrooper. We like the Stormtroopers. Keep the Stormtroopers. And so some people are acting, they are asking for a lot more than they should. And so their expectations, they're raising them quite high as though they're wanting to be let down. But these are what I call new generation Star Wars fans. They're in for it just because there's something to say on the internet, They want people to be disappointed, so they start hyping it up, which was exactly what happened with the Superman movie. They're trolling. You're going to get trollers out there. So people are building expectations up when perhaps they shouldn't. Just sit back, relax, enjoy this amazing thing that's coming our way and be grateful that it is coming our way. But I don't think that we're being built up just to be let down. Like Mark said, it's all new. He's lucky, actually. He's got a blank slate. He hasn't got to go back in time to explain what happened in the beginning. He's got a completely, they've brought back the characters that we always wanted to see what would happen when they were older. Now he's starting off something into the future. Anything could happen. He's lucky.
It's true. I mean, you say that, trying to stay away from it and trying to see any spoilers, but sadly for me, Mark Newbold is my best friend, so I'm kind of boned in that respect.
I try not to spoil too much.
Well, I mean, you can't get away from everything, but I've tried not to read about the story. I know that, you see people. I think the last picture I actually saw was the black and white in the studio for the script read-through. Yeah. And even then, I didn't even know who half of those people were that they'd cast. Everybody's going crazy about, oh my God, they've just cast. I don't know who that person is. So I'm quite I'm looking forward to seeing what they come up with.
I'm quite happy. I'm loving the fact that they've got the original cast in there, but I'm really happy to see all these new, fresh faces. It's actually quite exciting to see what they're going to do with it and where they're going to go with it. And the fact that they're referencing the original trilogy as well is just going to be amazing, because unfortunately that's why I think the prequel fell flat. It was referencing the original trilogy, which of course it had to because it was the prequel, but I just felt it was doing it in all the wrong ways. Well, I mean, we could easily get into a rant about the prequels. I could easily get into a conversation about what I liked about the prequels. There's plenty that I liked about them, but unfortunately, what I didn't like about them kind of overshadows what I enjoyed about them. So, but yeah, I am looking forward to the new film. I am not sort of fireworks, wetting my pants excited about it because, like Lisa said, I'm really trying not to be, because I don't want to get to that level where I sit in that cinema with my Star Wars hat on. With Mickey Mouse ears on, with my Star Wars t-shirt on, with the soda in one hand, and I've been listening to the Star Trek I keep saying Star Trek, the Star Wars soundtrack all the way to cinema, and then I sit there, and then 2 hours later I walk out thinking, that's it, unfortunately I'm going to have to kill myself. So it's just, I don't know, we'll see. I'm going to give it its chance. Every film gets its chance, but I'm more positive about this film than I was about I was really positive about episode 1. I wasn't positive about episode 2 or 3, but I am positive about episode 7. So
the massive difference between this trilogy and the prequel trilogy, I think, and Nancy touched on this earlier, about how when you were saying how you felt let down by the Jedi because, they should have seen it coming, and just from a logical point of view, they just didn't. But when you read the original Star Wars novel, the little preface at the beginning, the whole Journal of the Worlds bit, where they say, the Republic was like, I'm paraphrasing, the Republic was like a tree, it rotted from within, and, and they didn't see this bad thing coming. And he doesn't tell you what it is, because he'd only got sketchy notes. But when we went to see the prequels, and I mean, John certainly would sit down way before the film came out and go, well, we're going to see this, we're going to see Anakin and Ben fight, and there's going to be a lava pit, and we're going to see the Clone Wars. And so we kind of knew what was coming in that trilogy. So, and it was definitely, episode 1 was definitely the most anticipated movie ever. I've just written it on StarWars.com, and John, you'll love this. It was about the Walker's Crisps promotions in 99. And I'm ranting on about, this, that and the other, and, the special editions came out, and then, episode 1 comes out, and hype. Pep's done a $2 billion deal, and la 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 la. Everyone's going nuts. Episode 1 comes out. I think if episode 1 had the hype of a normal blockbuster, I think people would have been fairly satisfied. But we hold Star Wars, like Star Trek and, Into Darkness, we hold these franchises to a higher standard. If a really shitty, crap Lord of the Rings film came out, you would not hear the end of it on social media. But thank God they've all been of a very good quality. So it's not happened, and the source material is so amazing, so it shouldn't happen. But with Star Wars, I think with episode 7, I think the anticipation, well, right now we're still sort of 490 days away, but the anticipation now is big, and we're interested. And now, because social media is a different beast to what it was in 99, back then, we weren't on social media every day. We weren't interacting with people every day. I could talk to Nancy on Skype in 1999. You know what I mean? And I've got plenty of friends I interact with in the States on a daily basis, and might see every couple of years when I do a con in the States, and that's just a flyby, hello, shake your hand, how you doing? Let's have a quick beer, whatever. But with Star Wars coming out in episode 7, we don't really know what's going to happen yet. We've got no idea. We know some of the characters that are in it. We know some of the actors are in it. We're hypothesizing about this, that, and the other. I've just done a bunch of stuff on the Metro about, well, what could have happened to Han Solo in the last 30 years? What could have happened to Luke or Chewie? That's the one that went on today. What could have happened to Chewie in the last 30 years? Well, he might have gone back to Kashyyyk.
He got squashed by a moon.
Exactly. Or his life debt to Han. Han might have gone, hey man, you just helped save the galaxy. I'm rescinding your life debt. You can stay with me. You can go back home. He might have become a politician like Jar Jar. Don't forget, Jar Jar was the goofy side, was like the sidekick character in episode 1. Becomes
Jesus Christ, this is all Jar Jar's fault. It's all Jar Jar's fault.
It's all Jar Jar's fault. Listen,
if you could it's like what I always say, it's one of those things, if you go back and kill Adolf Hitler as a child, would you do it? If you could find Jar Jar, would you do it?
Well, you couldn't drown him.
Well, I don't know. He was pretty rubbish at being, a creature from the sea. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think he was the most egregious thing that came out of the prequels. I know that's like a crazy thing to say, but I had other problems.
Well, I'm curious now, because I mean, obviously everybody picks on Jar Jar and everybody picks on,
Yeah, I just think he's low-hanging fruit. Like, it's easy to say that and then go on with yourself. Like, there are plenty of things wrong with the story for, like, what they did and did not. I don't know. That could be an entirely different podcast. I'm not saying he's not bad. He is. Poor Ahmed Best, right? Like,
yes, yeah.
He had no idea.
Yeah.
He should have known. I'll bet you he knew when he was filming it. He was like, shit, this is not going to work out for me. I don't know. I'm not cute like the Ewoks. I don't think they're going to take it.
Do you know, I was genuinely not talking about Jar Jar as the amazingly annoying toy opportunity. I'm talking about the plot. It's all his fault.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's absolutely all his fault. That's it. Now it's like they thought, right, we need to blame this on someone, people.
Right,
who are we going to blame it on? And they're like, let's blame it on Jar Jar. Everyone hates Jar Jar, right? You hate Jar Jar. I hate Jar Jar. His mother hates Jar Jar. That's it. We'll blame it on Jar Jar. Okay. That's like kind of like what happened.
So that plot point of him actually turning around and talking about emergency powers, wasn't it? So that kind of plot point of getting him to do that because he was such a putz, that could have worked. But unfortunately, he was such a massively annoying twat anyway. You kind of think, yeah, it's a good idea plot-wise, but unfortunately, because we kind of hated the character anyway, we're not thinking about, oh my god, he's just giving emergency powers to the bad guy. What we're actually thinking is, somebody shut that twat up. So it's really frustrating.
The fact that he even ended up in the Senate, I mean, he's like the political equivalent of Michael Fabricant. I just, let's get political. Let's get political. You know, it's
I like Michael Fabricant. He's fun. He's our Boris Johnson.
No, he's not. Boris Johnson is Boris Johnson in his own right. Michael Fabricant turns up to the opening of a letter.
And I'd like to apologise to our international listeners who don't know what the fuck we're talking about.
Ex chief whip to the Tory party. Eastfield MP.
And it's all his own hair, apparently.
Apparently. It looks like a thatched cottage.
Wow.
And I've seen it up close. He was a Morris dancer at the Bower.
Yes, I saw that.
I think, anyway, Mark, what you were saying about like the story, I think for me, like all of the other things can really fall by the wayside, and I don't care what they look like. It could have been all green screen. It could be a CG movie. If the plot was really good, I would not care.
Well, that's what made the original. We were talking about this, about the 80s films. All the other conversations that we've had have kind of built up to this. Because you look at the 80s films, because they were restricted by technology, restricted by money maybe, restricted by all those elements that make movies amazing these days, they had to make sure they had a bloody good story and sort of endearing characters for you to root for, to make up for that. I call this my David Twohy analogy. When David Twohy made Pitch Black, he made a pretty solid science fiction film. Yes, it was just basically a bunch of monsters running around trying to bite Vin Diesel's head off. But at the end of the day, they had some pretty good, solid characters, some wonderful-looking sets and sort of build-up, and it was all made on a really moderate, low budget. Mm-hmm. Suddenly, they give him $100+ million to make Chronicles of Riddick with, and it's like, I don't know what to do with this. So all those holes that in this story I mean, don't get me wrong, I quite like Chronicles of Riddick. It's a pretty good action film, and it's not a good, solid science fiction film, but it's quite well done. And I quite like the design of it as well. Yeah, absolutely. And oh my god. And no, so he makes this film. It's like he's got all these things that he wants to say. So instead of telling a decent story, he fills in all those gaps with big explosions and lots of CGI and massive sets and all this sort of stuff. And it's almost like you've given him too much money. Don't give him so much money. Make him fill in those gaps by being creative, not just by chucking money at it. So getting somebody sitting at a computer for 12 hours and creating all these huge, expensive backdrops that people just like looking at, which you can see on any computer game these days. That's not what I'm interested in. And in some respects, that's some of the things that I didn't like about the prequel trilogy. Because, I mean, you can't fault the special effects. I mean, let's be honest about that. The special effects are brilliant. They are fantastic. But there's a lot to them. There's no soul to it. Because I don't really care about the characters that have been written about, that are acting on that screen, that are telling me that story. Because I don't care about them, I don't care about the fireworks. You want me to care?
Isn't this the problem with going back to Into Darkness? You've nailed that. You don't care. You've got to care about the characters to care about the situation.
That's right.
And all the trimmings that go with it. And
but Into Darkness had its own unique problem, whereas not only did you not care about the characters, you didn't believe them either. Every time they were talking about this is going to be the greatest friendship ever, oh no, I'm really upset because you're in there dying from radiation poisoning when it should be me, because let's face it, it should be me. Yeah. And then getting all upset and going, God, and thinking, no, there's absolutely no reason why you would be upset. You show me absolutely no reason as to why you should be upset because Kirk is dead, other than the fact that you're glad he's dead because he's a shit character in this particular film. And it's just frustrating. But sorry, we went off on a Star Trek analogy again because it's Into Darkness.
There's lots of them.
But going back to Star Wars, there wasn't really many characters. In fact, there was virtually no characters in that entire show that I was even remotely emotionally invested in. In fact, the characters were making choices where you're sort of listening to, watching them talk, and you're thinking, what are you doing that? What? Hey, what are you doing that for? Now, me and Lisa were talking about this yesterday, and it was the scene where Anakin finds his mum, and she's dead, and the Sand People have killed her.
Those poor Sand People.
Those poor Sand People,
Poor Sand People.
Totally misunderstood. And it's just like, you're sort of looking at them, and they've killed her, and that's, to be fair, that's a powerful scene. And do you know why? Because they're in a set, and there's no CG in the background. They can sit there and get completely absorbed in the moment. He's just watched his mum die, then the music starts, then he looks up, and he's got this look in his eyes, and he's thinking, the shit's going to go down now. He puts his mum down, he walks out the hut. He decapitates 2 Sand People, the others come running at him, they look a few on his face, and he goes for it. And at that point you're thinking, oh man, this is amazing. 2 minutes later, it cuts back to him and Padme, and he's explaining to her that he's killed the men, and he's killed the women, and he's killed the children. And she's like, no, don't worry about it, drink some blue milk. And it's like, hang on a minute, I don't fully understand. He's just told you he's just wiped out women and children. That doesn't really, and as somebody who once ruled her own planet and was really concerned about them,
right?
Why are you now suddenly sort of thinking, oh, well, we obviously had his reasons. And then you piss off and marry him 2 scenes later. No. Not only that, at some point, you would have thought she'd been like, okay, Anakin, just stay there, just 1 minute, I'll be back in 1 minute. She goes into the room, gets on the phone, beep, 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 beep. Hello, Jedi Council. Yeah, can I speak to you, please? There's some serious shit going down here, which I think you should know about. One of your Padawans has gone fucking mental, and it's just crazy. And the reason why you don't believe that she wouldn't do such a thing is because literally 10, 15 minutes earlier, they were back on Naboo having this fucking awful fireplace scene where he wants to wish his feelings away. And you're thinking, at no point during all that rolling around in the glass and those big farting balloon animals, did you even think for one moment that there was something romantic going on there. All you had was a twatty teenager who didn't know what the hell he was doing, and her, who's obviously a lot old. For God's sake, when he was 9 years old, she was ruling a freaking planet. So she obviously has a lot more sense than he does. She's trying to blow him off.
Not really, I suppose.
Yeah, well, there you go. And she's trying to blow him off. And then, like in that sense, but she's trying to basically say, please, get away from me. We can't get involved. And then he's telling her, I've just murdered a whole bunch of people, including children. Oh, that's a slightly premonition sort of movement that's going to happen in the next film. That's a whole different story which we won't go into right now. But she, and then she's fine with it. And then she marries him. And then I'm sort of watching it, I'm thinking the characterisation and the internal consistency for those people make absolutely no sense. And I'm sorry, I was ranting, and now I'll stop.
Okay, well, no, that's good, because that is what I thought was the most egregious thing about the prequels, not Jar Jar. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I don't have to say anything now. You've done it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's personal take. I'm not talking for everyone, and that's personal. That's just the way I saw it. But I've watched it. Sure. I haven't just watched it once and thought that was shit. I'm not watching that again. I've watched these films. I mean, I don't like them, but I've watched them a lot of times. I have sat down and watched them because I love Star Wars, and I want to sit down and think, right, okay, Star Wars, here we go. I've watched the original trilogy. Let's get the prequels on the go now. And when they're on television, I will sit there and I will watch them. Because they are, for God's sake, because I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, these are Star Wars films. There's moments in these Star Wars films which I really, really enjoy. But sadly, go on.
Don't you find, John? Don't you find that, and everybody, it's easier to get absorbed into the story and easier to get absorbed into the planets of the original trilogy than it is to get absorbed into the prequel trilogy.
That's exactly it.
Because the story of the original trilogy is, I mean, originally it was one story and Lucas chopped it into 3, so he broke it, he stretched it out over 3 films, essentially. Yeah. But the prequel trilogy, because the prequel trilogy was basically Star Wars' version of the Silmarillion, it's the backstory to the original trilogy. And he's got so much stuff in there going on, so much plot, so much stuff in there, that it feels to me, even down to the way it's edited, the original trilogy it's got room to breathe, it's got room to move, it flows beautifully from scene to scene. That's why some of the edits in the special editions really pee me off, because it
really grate on my nerves,
breaks up the flow.
Yeah.
You know, the whole the Jabba scene in A New Hope, not needed. You know, getting rid of the bring my shuttle and prepare my Star Destroyer for my arrival so they can show the shuttle Tardarian from Jedi and all that stuff. Not needed. It breaks up the music cues and everything. Don't need that. So, but there's so much dense plot to fit into the prequels that even though you've got 3 sort of 2.5 hour long films, they're still bouncing around as fast as they can. Cut from scene. Let's cut from a scene on Geonosis to a scene on Tatooine that basically looks the same. And on first viewing, it's like, I'm confused. What's going on? You know, so it was too fast paced.
Yeah.
But I feel that you can, you know, when you're on Hoth in The Empire Strikes Back, you know, it moves in its own nice, steady pace. It's not slow. It's not fast. But you're there.
It gives you time to absorb it. But the thing is, I think you mentioned something earlier about being sucked into the world. I think that's probably why I watched the prequels. I'm not being sucked into the story, and I'm definitely not being sucked in by the characters, but I'm being sucked into the world. The look of it, the feel of it, the ships that you see flying around, Coruscant. You know what I mean? All these wonderful planets. That's what I'm being drawn to. Sadly, I'm not being drawn to the story. I think that's probably its biggest failing. I mean, it's easy enough to blame expectations, but sadly, if we look at it critically, if you look at it with like a really cynical eye, it's just badly written. I just don't think it's a good story at all. There was elements in there where you're thinking episode 1 should have been episode 2, and then they should have had 3 films of Clone Wars, and that would have been absolutely fine. You didn't need episode 1. Episode 1 to me feels very, very superfluous. You didn't need it.
Mm.
Sorry.
No, I'm just saying on a more positive note.
You want to talk about Star Trek now?
No. I just wanted to, I'm interested to know what each one of us' favourite thing about Star Wars is. Why we like Star Wars. Mine personally are the Ewoks.
Hey.
I love the Ewoks. I would rather be on Endor than Narnia.
What? No. Okay,
hell
we're
yeah,
different
I
on that
would.
way.
But now I have a question.
Sorry, Lisa, I'm assuming that you've not seen Battle for Endor, so...
I've seen the caravan. Caravan of...
Caravan of is amazing.
Yeah.
I want to
got that on, I'm not ashamed. I have that on DVD.
Yeah, I bought it for you.
Yeah. And the sequel.
Battle for Endor.
Yeah.
That's appalling.
My worry is, right, if you go back though, these cuddly, lovely, wow, they're so cute. I've got many an Ewok. My problem is, when you think about it, they're all lovely, cuddly and nice, but weren't they carrying the human beings to cook? Do they eat? We forget that, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
They like the smell and taste of man flesh.
So if I was on Endor instead of Narnia, they'd probably hunt you down and kill me? Is that what you're saying?
And eat you, yeah.
You see, that's just not coming across in the travel brochures. It's all very nice that they can take down an army with a stick.
And then eat them.
Yeah, what is that about? No, they didn't address this. I don't feel this was addressed enough.
You've got me thinking now, travelling to Endor, you go on Star Tours, you go on the Star Speeder 3000. What was the name of that Moncal ship in the role play? Was it the
Kawari Princess? Yeah.
You go to Endor on the Kawari Princess and meet the cuddly furry Ewoks, but make sure you don't fall asleep because when you wake up, they might have just took one of your arms off or something. So,
right. So that's worrying. I just think that we need to. I know, but they're all sitting around
the universe is a dangerous place. They're taking the helmets off dead stormtroopers and they're using them as a xylophone. You sick furry bastard.
It's like a scene from Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom. The chilled monkey brains in the stormtrooper hats.
Chilled clone brains.
That's it.
Yeah, they cut out the scene where they go into this massive tree to get more food for the feast. It's all dead stormtroopers hanging upside down being blessed.
Shocking. I have to say that is my favourite thing about Star Wars.
What? Evil Ewoks?
The Ewoks and, of course, my beloved Jawas.
Can't go wrong with Jawas. Yeah.
I absolutely love Jawas. They're just trying to make a dollar. They need dollars. They're just trying to make a dollar. If they find it, they sell it. That's it. I think we do not give them enough credit for being so small but having something so amazing go through the sand like that.
Yeah.
They've got an amazing ship. Yeah.
Utini means any old iron.
Utini! That's it. We've all got that. Utini. Great big Jawa weddings should be on TV. They're the gypsy of the desert.
They're the gypsies, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah.
My big fat Jawa wedding.
My big fat Jawa wedding, right there. I'm claiming that right now.
There you go.
I'm just saying I'm copywriting that. Yeah, I'm going to pitch that one. I'm going to pitch it.
I'd watch it.
All you get for that, the whole thing, is them not talking to the camera, huddling in the corner going, that's all you get for that entire show.
I would pay to see that.
That's it. Oh, that's it. Show. Sorry, I'm sorry. He shot another cameraman. Sorry, show's over. Oh shit, is he right? Is he what makes? Another fucking eating him. What the hell's his show all about? What is going on?
What? The most funniest Star Wars parody thing I've ever seen was that bad cops?
It was Troops.
Troops.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's good.
I love it. When they're trying to talk.
The reason why, what was it, the Baroos died was because of
a
domestic incident. Sorry, no, that's just brilliant.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Calm down.
Yeah. Going back to what you said, Lisa, about our favourite things about Star Wars, I think my favourite thing about Star Wars is the fact that we can sit around for hours upon hours having conversations like this, and talking about plot elements and trying to figure out people's, even with the prequels, trying to figure out people's, what do you call it, sort of motives or things that they might be thinking, or, the hidden meaning behind certain things. And one theory that I came up with, and I don't know if anybody else has come up with this, I might just repeat some shit somebody else has said, is the fact that Luke Skywalker actually screwed up the balance of the Force in a big way. Because at the end of the day, it was Mace Windu in quite a throwaway line, one of his many throwaway lines, saying, this is the boy, talking about Anakin, who's going to bring balance to the Force. And in a way, he did. Because he slaughtered the Jedi, and all that was left was him and his master, and on the light side of the Force, all that was left was Yoda and Ben. And that was it. So the Force was in balance. So when Luke Skywalker comes along, sadly, he sort of takes Ben's place, so the Force thinks, well, that's Luke Skywalker, he's going to take Ben's place, so get rid of Ben. Off goes Ben. So then you've got Yoda and Luke. That's the Force still in balance. Yoda teaches Luke, and then Luke, the twat, goes to the Death Star and fights Vader. He then turns into the light side, who then kills the Emperor, and then he dies. So all that's left is Mr. Light Side Luke. That's no balance to the Force. That's just the light side of the Force.
Unless Luke's
that's assuming that that's what balance means.
Yeah. But it has to be light and dark. There's the light side and the dark side. Luke's just representing the light side. There is nobody stepping up and representing the dark side. So
maybe that's where the new film goes.
I'm sure that is where the new film absolutely will go.
It has to. You've got to have unbalance for there to be a new one. Yeah.
Now, the only other person with Force powers in the galaxy that we're aware of is Leia.
Right.
So,
children.
Well, they're not going to expanded universe. So, as far as everybody's concerned, those children aren't going to be in the film. So, all you've got is Luke and Leia. Mm. So, what's going to happen? Is Luke going to be the new bad guy? Is one of them going to turn dark? I mean, it'd be silly to think that a couple of Sith are going to suddenly pop up and go, "Oh, well, here we are. Sorry about that. We were having breakfast. What's going on? Oh shit!" And then get the lightsabers out and then start fighting again. So it's just not. I can't see that happening. So I want to see where they're going to go with. They might not even have thought of that. But I was thinking about that the other day, and I'm thinking that's just one line. I mean, Mace Windu had lots of throwaway lines like, "Oh, we better tell the council that our ability to use the Force is diminished." That's kind of important. You spent 3 seconds talking about it. No, that's quite an important plot point, actually. What? And it's the same with that. It's the prophecy. What prophecy? Who came up with the prophecy? Who's talking about the prophecy? I don't want to have to read 6 volumes of expanded universe stuff to understand what he's talking about the sudden prophecy. I don't get it. What prophecy is this? It's another throwaway line. So if that prophecy is true, Luke Skywalker screwed it up. Does that make any sense?
That does make a lot of sense.
It
makes
does.
a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But you need him to. He has to, for there to be moving forward.
Yeah, but that's not moving forward, though, is it? That's basically unbalancing the Force again.
There's always going to be. You can't have
there's always
balance. There's always going to be.
Yeah, but it seems to me that the Sith are the only people who ever tell the truth, right? In fact, any Star Wars, it's always the bad guys that have always told the truth. All the good guys have lied through their freaking teeth about everything. Yeah.
Yeah, but John, you have Starfleet.
Well, whatever about Starfleet. But so basically, you've got the Sith who always tell the truth. Maybe they're the only ones that are actually obeying the rules. One master, one apprentice. Maybe it's the Jedi that were wrong by buggering off and training shitloads of people.
No, that's choice.
In the ways of the Force.
That's choice.
Yeah, but maybe that's
down to choice, because you know that you can't know, John. That's choice. Jedi decided to be almost in community basis.
Right.
They chose to no, and I hate to mention the M word, but midichlorians. That's what they're saying that it came from. That they recognised these people that had these, and at some point that they would needed to have been trained to hone that power to do it. So they were doing it as a community service, so to speak. And they've had these people where they were.
Yeah, but
it was also to keep those people, and they didn't do it. So there you go. Well, and they were also paranoid. That's the only reason there was two.
Well, yeah, they were paranoid because they were afraid they were going to get killed.
Well,
but
people cannot share power. That's why there are only two people.
Absolutely.
People who are in it for themselves can't share.
If they could have more, they would.
Yeah, but they knew that the Force. Yeah, but if you look at it, you got more Jedi than you got Sith, so the Force is most definitely unbalanced. And it was the Jedi.
Choice.
It was the Jedi that knew that it was unbalanced because they've got a prophecy about somebody coming along to balance the Force. So they must have known that there was something wrong going on there. And they were completely unprepared for it.
I don't think they were aware of what exactly that meant.
Well, Yoda knew. He knew that was only one master, one apprentice, so he knew that there was a threat out there.
There's a lot of mixed metaphors going on here, though, and I think a lot of it is down to the way that Lucas kind of laid it all out. When you look at the original trilogy, which chronologically follows on from the prequels, obviously, we always knew as kids growing up until Episode 1. And don't forget, Lucas came up with midichlorians for Empire Strikes Back and took it out of an early draft. So midichlorians have been around since almost as long as Star Wars has. But the Force was a mystical energy field. It didn't need explaining. Things in Star Wars don't need explaining like things in Star Trek need explaining. You can sit down and try and explain the theoretical theory behind a warp field.
Star Trek needs technobabble to eternally make sense, whereas in Star Wars it's very much the wizard did it. So
Star Wars is fantasy and Star Trek is science.
Totally. Yeah. Crazy old wizards and la la la. You don't need to know how a lightsaber works. It's not relevant. It doesn't matter. The fact that they've done it, great. I drink the Kool-Aid, so I'm happy that they do it, but you don't need it. You don't need the Force to be explained. So by having the whole midichlorian conversation, which makes the Force something physical, like you've said before, John, give somebody a blood transfusion, there can be a Jedi because they've got the whatever you want to call it, the capacity to do things with the Force that you wouldn't if you hadn't got a midichlorian count. So that is in itself is a problem. But the whole prophecy thing, it's all Qui-Gon talks about the will of the Force, and that's a very much an original trilogy way of thinking about the Force, the will of the Force, and the fact that the Force is almost a living thing, and we live within it, and all these different concepts of the Force. Whereas as soon as you bring in the midichlorian angle, it's like, well, how can there be the will of the Force? It's like being anemic, it's just something you've got in your blood. So it totally changes the whole.
Takes away the uniqueness of it. There's nothing special about it anymore.
Takes the mystique of it to a certain degree.
Yeah.
It explains it, but it doesn't never needed explaining. And again, his midichlorian count is nearly 20,000. That was a throwaway line, really, that they kind of went off with and made more of, and we've made more of, and the expanding universe made more of. But yeah, I mean, the difference between Jedi and Sith, it's light and day. Back in ancient Star Wars history, there were as many Sith as Jedi.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where the Sith, like Nancy said, they're power hungry. The Jedi don't crave power in the same way that the Sith do. And the Jedi community, some kids who were Force sensitive weren't adept enough, weren't wise enough, weren't centered enough to become given a lightsaber and go out and fight. So they would be part of it sounds crazy, but they're like a farmers guild where these people will go out and help manufacture and farm and stuff like that, helping the community. Jedis are supposed to be community based, and they basically became. You can see in the prequels the way that characters on Coruscant especially refer to the poodoo, bloody Jedi, sticking their noses in, and you hear Anakin, get back to your drinks. It's like the whole military attitude of the Jedi rubs people up the wrong way. So they had a terrible PR problem basically.
Right, exactly.
No sympathy with guys. And I go back to the point about Jar Jar carrying the can for doing what he did with that Military Creation Act. Everybody else in the Senate was backing it. If Jar Jar had said, let's do this, and everybody else had said no, it wouldn't have happened. So everybody was blindsided by what Palpatine was doing. He was a genius playing both sides to the middle. Yeah. And Jar Jar was just the easiest pawn. Because obviously you assume in the Star Wars galaxy, even though he's a goof, he's kind of respected. He wouldn't have been in the Senate if he wasn't to some degree, quite an adept politician. He's not fool, you know, and the character matured. We never saw Jar Jar much after episode 1 because, you know, that was the big criticism, the big stick that the film got beat with, and, you know, you didn't see as much of what happened to him, but, you know, there's a lot going on.
Oh. Well, ladies and gentlemen, any final thoughts on the conversations that we've had this evening? I mean, Star Wars is in a very unique place at the moment in the fact that it's still carrying quite a lot of love from the original trilogy. It's still got its fans from the prequels. I mean, the last film was, 11 years ago? So it's got 11 years worth of fandom. When it's got its cartoons, it's most definitely stuck in the public eye for such a long time. And even now, they're talking about the films, everything that happens with Harrison Ford having an accident, the photos of the Millennium Falcon leaking, all this sort of crap. It's actual newsworthy. It's been covered in national and international news. So it's obviously got the still in the public eye. So are we confident that this new film will live up to that? And are we confident that Star Wars will carry on for a very, very long time?
Yes.
Yeah.
I know I am.
I just think that it's still got so much more to give.
The thing is, that what makes it great is such a huge setting. This is one of the things that used to frustrate me about the expanded universe, was the fact that it's such a huge setting. There's so many places to visit, so many characters to follow, so many adventures to have, and yet they kept talking about the same people up against new threats. And that's why I got bored with the expanded universe. I wanted to see something new. I wanted to see something like what me and Mark were doing with the settling sector. It was a whole place, a whole region of space, whole load of new places, own internal consistency, like the corporate sector authority, whole load of new stories, places, people, plots, characters covering, and it did not intrude on the bigger Star Wars galaxy, which is what gave it its uniqueness. It was influenced by it, it was affected by it, but it didn't overshadow it, it didn't influence it. So it was basically its own thing. And the galaxy is so big, you could have different adventures like that. They really need to start concentrating on things other than the primary characters. I know that's what people want to read about, but give them the option. Give them something else to read about. It works with Star Trek. There's no reason why it can't work with this.
I agree. It's a big galaxy. There's loads of stories to tell. Yeah. I'm hopeful for the new films. I think they're going to be great. But obviously, I'm kind of a cheerleader for Star Wars anyway. But I'm not so blinded that I can't see what I perceive to be shortcomings. But there's far more for me positives that outweigh the negatives. And again, it's because it's been so much part of my life for most of it. You know, I feel like invested in it. I've invested my time, and every day I do something Star Wars related. And you know, John, that it's been like that since we've met. Yeah. And it was like that before we met. You know, so that's just me. And yeah, I get that there's things that don't work. There's things that fall short. But I think in life, you know, not everybody. You know, it's the whole Tasha Yar thing. Oh, she got killed by an oil slick. Oh, some people, you know. Jimi Hendrix, Bon Scott, Mama Cass, all choked on their own vomit, basically. Yeah. You know, shit happens. It's not always a heroic death. We can't always go down with the ship. You know, sometimes it's.
I agree to a certain extent. So, I agree to a certain extent, but at the end of the day, it's the nature of the story that's being told. I mean, if we were watching Return of the Jedi and then halfway through that speeder bike chase, Luke Skywalker fell off the bike and broke his neck, you'd be like, what? And then you can explain it away with, oh, well, no, shit happens. And it's like, yeah, but it's not Star Wars, though, is it? And I think that's one of the things that I didn't like about Tasha Yar's death. I like the way they brought her back, by the way. Because let's face it, Yesterday's Enterprise was a fantastic episode. Oh, amazing. So it's absolutely brilliant. But, the way she died, it was obvious. She was like, oh, I'm bored of this show now, I want to go off and do something else. It's like, okay, kill a character, that's it, off she goes. And I don't want to see people tripping and falling downstairs and breaking their necks because it's like real life. This is science fiction. This is big heroic adventure stuff. I want to see it in your face. If you're going to die, I want you to take a planet with you. You know what I mean? So I want it to be cool and big. And somebody typing. Is somebody typing during the podcast?
Somebody's typing.
Is somebody so bored of Star Wars that they feel they need to type?
Nobody's typing.
Sorry, it must be me. So
I think you said about the expanded universe. You make a really good point in that after a while it can get repetitive and a bit like the samey. And I know they went through a whole period, and people did get tired of it. It's, oh god, super weapon of the week, You know, what is it this time? You know, so they can fall into that trap. And with the new films, no doubt about it, whatever they write, you know, it's like Shakespeare said, there's only 7 stories you can tell. Yeah. You know, but no doubt about it, whatever happens in this film, some character turns bad, they'll go, oh, it's like Dark Empire. Or if somebody's son goes bad, oh, it's like Fate of the Jedi. Or, you know, whatever happens. Oh, Princess Leia's got a lightsaber. Oh, that happened in Dark Empire again. You know what I mean? There's loads of
You're
examples.
going to get away from it, aren't you?
Well, that's happened before. Yeah, exactly. I love the fact they had these Millennium Falcon pictures came out this week. If they turn out to be true, nothing's been confirmed. But if you've seen the pictures, it's the interior of the Falcon, but they've changed the leather upholstery on the Falcon. So instead of it being those battered old knackered seats from the original trilogy, bearing in mind this is 30 years on, I'm pretty sure most people will either change their car or redecorate their house in 30 years. They've reupholstered the Falcon, so the Falcon looks like really cool, actually. Yeah. Nice, cool brown leather seats. I thought, I really, really like that. And there's people complaining about it. It's like, why wouldn't they do that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, there's so many, Princess Leia hasn't, I've seen pictures of Carrie Fisher taken while she's filming the movie, and she's got blonde hair. So you can quite, you know, theoretically assume Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia will have blonde hair in the new film. Why the hell not?
Yeah.
Mark Hamill's got a beard. Why the hell not? You know what I mean? So there's all these little things that sneak out. Things change. Things need to change. Like you say, the new Stormtrooper designs, if any of those are true, I've heard conflicting things about whether or not they are true or real or not.
They are cool designs, though. I quite like those helmet designs. Yeah.
The one particularly was really, really cool. With the lopsided helmet, you've got the breathing vent on one side and not on the other. Really liked it. But, you know, you look at that, like you said earlier, John, you go, or Lisa, I think Lisa said it, that is definitely a Stormtrooper. There's no
absolutely.
Stormtrooper 2.0, you know, you're going to see slightly different Stormtroopers in Rebels, the new TV series, that look more like Macquarie ones with the bigger breathing vents, you know, like they look like Tusk almost.
Yeah.
Cool. You know, we've seen the design evolution from episode 1, you know, through, or rather episode 2 really, you know, through the Clone Troopers. Brilliant, bring it up, you know. Familiar things, you know, you see Han Solo's outfit, it's like, well, that looks a bit like his Hoth outfit, that looks a bit like his Endor poncho, that's really cool. You know, just tweaked enough so that it's different, but very evocative of the original, but, I'm excited. Can't you tell? I'm really excited.
I think it's going to be cool. Right. Well, does anybody else have anything they want to add?
I think we covered it all. I mean, we cover a little bit every week, don't we? So
yeah. Star Wars always gets a mention every single week.
No, it's just Star Wars is a thing. Is some people may listen to this and people that don't know us and think that we've been a little bit negative, but the fact is that we are fans.
Yeah.
And this is a forum for us to not be intimidated by people saying, well, if you're a real fan, you can't say any negative. We want to see something brilliant. We want to talk about what we're nervous about. We want to talk about what we like. And I think it's that people need to remember that there are two spectrums. You don't have to love everything that comes out of something, but you're there to support it. And if that means that speaking your mind and saying the things that you're worried about, nervous about, so that you can get feedback, is the right way to do. So, I mean, a lot of people in a lot of genres think that if you speak out about this, then you're not a real fan. I mean, there was, I don't know who it was, somebody on Twitter lost some followers because they remarked that they liked Star Trek.
Yeah, he lost a lot of Star Wars. A lot of his followers were Star Wars fans, and he started talking about what he liked about Star Trek, and then he lost a load of his followers.
He lost a load of his followers.
And it's like, whoa, what?
Yeah, so I just think,
really
I just wanted to Star Wars fans that are listening to it and thinking, well, I can't believe this. This was, I thought this was going to be 100% positive Star Wars, but it is. We love Star Wars.
Yeah.
We love Star Wars, but we are old, grumpy nerds.
Yeah.
Some more that is what's going to happen.
Talk about it. Yeah,
you care about it. Exactly, Mark. Absolutely. You care about it, you want to talk about it.
No matter how negative I am about Star Wars, no matter how negative I am about the prequels, and I'm not 100% negative about the prequels, let's get that out of the way, although I probably am, but I am quite negative about them. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to the fact that I'm not saying that I hate it because I love it so much. I'm saying that I do love the idea of Star Wars. I love what I grew up with, and I love it all. If there's sections of it I don't like, I just ignore them. Okay, I didn't like that bit. Okay, it's like watching. I've been watching season 7 of Star Trek at the moment. There's a couple of episodes in there which I'm not massively fond of. I don't like the Descent story. I don't like parts 1 or 2. I don't know why. They just don't click with me. So that's it then. Well, I've watched them now, so I'll move on to the next one. You know what I mean? I don't let little moments like that colour my love for the actual rest of the franchise. So I accept that I don't like them.
Sorry?
Which one was this? Was that the one where Worf goes undercover? And
No, it's the one where Law takes over the Borg. Is it Descent?
Yes, it is. Yeah,
it is. It was the end of season 6, being the season 7. Yeah, I don't like the story. I just don't like it. I just think I didn't like the Borg story anyway. One with Hugh, because I thought that was you had the Borg. It's what Star Trek does every single time. You've got this massive enemy, and they're like, oh my god, these guys are gonna shove their hands up their asses and rip our kidneys out. And then it's like, and then 2 episodes later, it's like, oh, they're not so bad. Look at him, he's alright. So he had a bit of a smile whilst he was doing it. And it's just like, oh my god, what are you doing? You've completely declawed these people that a minute ago you were telling us were complete bastards. And that's what they did with the Borg with that.
Thank God for First Contact for bringing it back.
Thank God when it came back, it's like the Queen turned around and said, yeah, we know those Borg. They're all dead now. We're the bastards. So it's just like, and then get on with it again. So that kind of frustrates me a little bit with Star Trek. But again, I still doesn't mean that Star Trek's shit. It's just part of it that I don't like. The thing is, these franchises, both Trek and Star Wars, are so huge and so vast that if you don't like certain aspects of them, you can ignore them and then still enjoy with all the other stuff that you've got. So there are certain things that you can watch and think, oh no, that's crap, and I'm never going to watch that again, which to me is slightly short-sighted. But these worlds, these universes are so vast. There's plenty of stuff to love out there. You don't have to love it all.
Yeah.
So.
Agreed.
Sometimes it's got to be down to variation as well, hasn't it? To be able to see. I mean, if you go on to, this is really loose, but if you go onto Pinterest and you type in the words Batman, for example, you'll see thousands and thousands and thousands of images that come up by different people that express what they see in different ways. Some of them are shit. Some of them are not, and that's what you're going to get with different directors, different creative teams, different people that are coming forward to do different things. I mean, in our lifetime, Mark, this is directed at you, in our lifetime, how many different Star Wars films do you think you're going to see? Different interpretations, different things?
Wow, that's a great question. In my lifetime, well, I mean, I've seen 6 so far. There are definitely 3 more coming. There's 3 spin-offs, so that's 9. There's the 3 movies, which are spin-offs, if you think about it. So that's 11. I mean, I can see... Well, I know Disney's got plans for the next... I think they've got plans up till about 2040. So if JJ launches episode 7 and it goes big, and then 8 and 9 are guaranteed to happen pretty much.
Well, there you go.
I think you could see episode 12, and then spin-offs will just keep going. So, yeah.
We're just going to see loads of different versions, loads of different things. And I think in my old age, I'm starting to be a little bit more tolerant of that.
In your dotage?
Yeah, I just feel like, everyone's going, for example, the Batman Superman film, it's going to be absolute shit. Let it be shit. At least I'm seeing my things on the screen.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
At least my thing's not dying away, because if you keep doing it, it will die away.
Yeah.
Then you've got nothing.
At least these guys are trying. At least there's somebody out there who has love for the franchise. They're actually trying to do something with it. It might not work, and we all can accept that. And it will be disappointing when we go and see it. But I think we're all old enough and stupid enough to realise that it's not the end of the freaking world. And like you say, and you can still enjoy that particular franchise in another manner.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, with Star Wars, it is about the movies at the end of the day. It's the movies that the entire franchise is based around. So if a book comes out, an Expanded Universe book comes out, and I don't like it, I'll just give it away, or just do it myself and just ignore it. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's crap. But if the movie comes out and it's crap, it's going to have a bigger impact on me, because it's the movies that I'm looking to for my source material, basically. So I want them to do well. The same way that I want the Batman Superman film to do well. Because it's not at the moment, because I don't really follow Batman or Superman in the comics, but I do follow them with the films. So it's the films they're my key points. So I want it to do well on the big screen. I want the Marvel films to do well on the big screen, because I like Marvel as a comic, but I like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I want them to do well. But as soon as a bad film comes out, there'll be a little bit of negativity there, but I certainly will let it colour the rest of it.
Yeah, but a lot of people said that about the Superman movie. I thought it was amazing.
I loved it. That was my film of the year. That was my film of last year. I thought it was fantastic.
I thought it was amazing. But then I was genuinely shocked.
Yeah, Man of Steel, yeah.
I was genuinely shocked
I liked that too.
People would... they went to the level that they did, but that's
would be
the
problem is
business.
That's business.
People are always going to bring themselves to everything that they like. So you're never going to be able to make something that's universally... I mean, I'm sure there's someone, I don't know who they are, but there's bound to be someone who doesn't like the original trilogy, right? They have to exist.
No, that's crazy talk.
No, there's plenty of kids who were raised on the prequels who far prefer the prequels to the OT.
Yeah.
And I get that. I totally get that, because if that's what you're raised on, if your first Star Wars film was Phantom Menace and you liked it, that's your starting point. So I totally get that.
Mm. I don't think we have very much to worry about just based on what we have seen right now. I would say I'm far more positive than I was for like episode 2.
Yeah.
Which was just a sinking feeling most of the time.
Fandom didn't fall apart, but I mean, you think the amount of Star Wars websites that were around before episode 1, after the special edition, when the official site launched, after November 98, when the first trailer came out and the planet went apeshit about Star Wars, and then after the film came out and sadly, the general disappointment that brought about, which I didn't feel. It took me a few viewings to really get a hold of it, because it was so different, but I very quickly got into it and very much enjoyed it, but a lot of people just didn't. And so the amount of sites, Star Wars sites, just absolutely... I wrote an article about it on Lightsaber, John might remember, years ago, State of the Union address, just years ago, looking at, the amount of Star Wars sites that were around in 99, the big sites that rivaled the ForceNet, that just weren't around by episode 2. Loads fell away. So, it can have a big effect, but I don't foresee that this time. I think apart from that, there's only 2 years between films this time as opposed to 3, I believe.
Yeah.
So we'll be getting the next Star Wars film in where are we now? 2017 and then 2019, as opposed to 3 years. Plus spin-offs. It's a different beast. So, but then the world's a different place. I think with Superman and Batman, the great thing about Superman and Batman, it must be, it must be good for you as well, Lise, because obviously you collect the comics. So there's like a timeline and an internal consistency to some of the comics. I think back to when, your Batman Adventures on the telly, so you got that Batman timeline, you got the movies, that had its timeline. You had Detective and Shadow and all the other things. They had their timeline. You could have a Batman Adventures comic that would be based on the Batman Adventures TV series, but not have to be consistent with it. So you could have multiple Batman timelines going on at the same time.
That's why we have multiverse.
Well, DC's thing, wasn't it? But, whereas with Star Wars, you can't really do that. It's not the same. Okay, you've got Legends now, the sort of the alternate Star Wars universe that's suddenly come into being because of what they've done with the films. But, there needs to be the consistency, but I'm babbling again. I'm confident that it's all going to be great.
Cool.
I think that, and this is, I'm not a great knowledge base on Star Wars because there is so much. But I preferred the Clone Wars. The cartoon.
The cartoon, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I preferred the Clone Wars because generally I think they created a gem in that whole thing that I thought was possibly the best thing that's ever come out of Star Wars, and that's Ahsoka.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She is possibly one of the greatest things that Star Wars has ever, apart from the Jawas and the Ewoks, as a proper character. It was all about Ahsoka for me. And it's a shame that we never got to see more. I think, can you imagine if they came out and told me that she was going to be in some way or another in this new film? I'd be like, woo! Yeah, that's cool. That's cool because she's a great I would love to sit down. You know how they say about these people, people that you would invite to sit around a dinner table with you? Ahsoka would be there. Because I'd be like, tell me, what was it like working with that, that Sand People Beast killer.
Right.
What was it like working with that bloke that you really called?
Did you see that coming?
Child killer, that was the one.
Yeah, the person that you spent every day with? Yeah, did you see that coming? Could you have done something about it since you spent so much time with him?
Yeah, how come you never saw that coming? Obviously, your force skills are shite.
Because there was a couple of episodes, and obviously, stop me if I'm wrong, because I watched it in and out. But there was a couple of episodes where, especially there was one episode, really good story arc actually, where they went to this planet that affected them as though they went to the dark side.
Yes, the Mortis trilogy.
Yeah, she fought that. She came back on the other side, but she was strong. She was stronger than Anakin.
She was a very, very strong character. Although I would like to see her in the new films, because then I'd go, woohoo, the Force is even more imbalanced now. What the hell's going on? But
she was stronger than Anakin. And in my opinion, I'd love to see that a couple of things that she questioned him, like every Padawan questions their master, but she questioned him in this way to say, why are you doing that again? I really genuinely don't think that is the right thing to do.
She was kind of his conscience in a way.
Yes, but when Anakin questioned Obi-Wan, he was just being a tit.
Yeah.
That's a good analogy, though, Lisa. You know, the fact that Ahsoka was Anakin's conscience almost. Like I always say that Chewbacca was Han Solo's conscience.
Yeah.
You know, that without Chewie, Han wouldn't have been anywhere near as cool and as great a character or had a successful career as he did. Because Chewie, like his sounding board, without him even realising it.
R2-D2.
They need each other. They definitely need each other. And Ahsoka and Anakin is a really good analogy. I never thought of it quite that way. But yeah, they definitely do pair up in that respect.
I think the only depth that he had to his character was, for me, in the Clone Wars with Ahsoka.
Yeah.
He was maturer because he was given a Padawan.
Stability, yeah.
And he was preaching to her like he had been preached to, that got on his nerves. But he did it in a way where she was like, he gave her so much independence. She had so many adventures on her own where she had to hold the fort. And she was strong. My God, I don't think I'd seen another Padawan like her.
No.
And I just, great character. Really good. I mean, some of the other masters that she comes in contact with through a week-to-week basis. That for me was the extended universe.
Well, it's a bit like
its prime.
It's a bit like watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., isn't it? When you watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and you think, why can't Iron Man walk in? Why can't Thor walk in?
Exactly.
You know, they all say, well, you know, to meet these guys, it's like, you know, you meet Thor and it's like, you're meeting a god. You know, and it's too big. It's a massive thing. And yet in the Star Wars universe, if you're a Padawan and all of a sudden you walk in a room and there's Mace Windu and Yoda, isn't that like being an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. and walking into a room and there's Iron Man and Captain America? It's the same kind of thing, isn't it? And yet, you know what I mean? It's that kind of level of, you know.
But saying that, though, Mark, in war, and they were a war council.
Yeah.
You know, at the time that this was being made, it was a war council. So she and her master was Anakin Skywalker. So she was going to come across those people, those characters.
Yes.
She didn't really have a chance. They made her stand outside the room a lot, which I thought was great because it was like when your dad took, when we were kids, when your parents used to take you to the pub, you had to sit in the beer garden. That's what it reminded me of. It's like her parents were going somewhere and she wasn't allowed in.
Yeah, but to be fair, an animated show, you don't have to worry about paying $2 million to a star to appear on your TV show. So
but Ewan McGregor didn't voice Obi-Wan.
No,
he didn't. No, he didn't. Wasn't him.
So there's no excuse. You can get voice actors out there that are very competent to do it.
No, I'm on about the actual actors themselves, like turning up on Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., like having, what's his face, the dude that played Thor walking in and going, I'm Thor, and everybody going, oh my God, I've just wet my pants. And he's on there for 10 minutes, and they're saying, well, thank you for that. You've been on here for 10 minutes, but unfortunately that's just blown the entire budget for the entire series. So thanks for that. Now off you go. So, you know, but with an animated show, she can walk into a room and there's Yoda and there's Mace Windu and there's Samuel L. Jackson and, you know what I mean? There's all these different, there's Frank Oz with his hands up somebody's bottom in the corner. So, it's, you know, it's a vast difference, I suppose. But then again, when I was watching that, this is me ranting about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. now, the reason why I didn't really like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is because I just watched Avengers and unfortunately this was just felt like it's just not the same. This is like a really small Avengers. It's like, oh, these are the little guys, and you know they're on the sidelines, on the sidelines of all the big things that are happening. And I'm thinking, yeah, fuck that. I want to see all the big things.
It's
so,
like,
you know what I mean?
It's like when you're really, really thirsty, and you remember that you've got a bottle of lemonade. So you go into the kitchen, you get that lemonade, and you realise that someone's opened it and left the top off, and it's flat.
Yeah.
You are killing it with the analogies today.
Am I? Yeah, that is what it was like. It's like a.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Lisa. I'll remember to put the cap back on next time.
We just walked into the domestic. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Bloody hell, you and your Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. analogies. Bloody hell. So.
Well,
anyway.
my cup of tea.
Yeah, it's lemonade. But anyway, it's. I think that was a very, very intense and very interesting conversation. Does anybody else want to carry this on at some point, or shall we move back to our original 4 points of topics on the next show?
4 points of topic, please.
Yes, 4 points of topics. But
I'm sure we'll come back to Star Wars when we have a lot more info.
We'll definitely come back to Star Wars probably a few weeks down the line. And I do like your idea, Mark, of coming back and doing some more centric stuff like DC and what have you, and maybe doing a Star Trek special. Although, to be fair, there's quite a lot of Star Trek in this one tonight.
Yeah.
Right,
I think.
Yeah, but I think we covered some good ground tonight, and we think we've all made our feelings on Star Wars very plain. and clear. So, I would like to end this by saying thank you very much to Mr. Mark Newbold.
Thank you, guys. Always good to talk.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Lisa Hicks.
Houdini.
And thank you very much, Mrs. Nancy Petru.
Anytime.
Oh, I thought you were going to do an
Yeah, I did.
I was about to say.
You already took my Jawa noise.
Oh, no. Chihuahua.
Bring me solo Chumwookie.
Yes.
Oh,
Thank you very much, guys. And thank you very much, world, for listening. And we will see you on the next episode of NOMCAST. Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Let the Wookiee win.